I'm watching every single Planet of the Apes movie, and today we talk about... Today we are closing the chapter of the Planet of the Apes movies that your dad grew up watching in the 70s. Battle for the Planet of the Apes was initially my least favorite off of a first watch, but now that I've sat with it a bit and thought about the themes, I think it's clearly head and shoulders above the fourth movie. In the fifth installment of Planet of the Apes, we see humans and apes living in a sort of cohesive society, a utopia, if you will,
and I love you,
that has been crafted out of the wrongs of humans. This movie starts with a voiceover from the year 2670, given by the Lawgiver, who I haven't really mentioned in the rest of these movies up until this video, because I wanted to save him for this one because he plays a much more important role comparatively. The Lawgiver is kind of like the Pope of the apes. He's revered by all of them and is seen as this messianic figure. We see him in the first movie and the second movie as Dr. Zaius is talking about the Lawgiver and like what apes are supposed to be doing. It's all passed down by this guy that's giving the voiceover now. He talks about the state of the world and some historical events that happened between the last movies and where everything kind of generally stands in this universe going into the final chapter. The introduction to this movie really seals like the finality of it. It really feels like you're watching the last movie in a franchise from the jump. The Lawgiver tells us about an encampment where humans and apes are living somewhat peacefully after a global nuclear fallout that decimated most human life. Caesar is the head of this new civilization. He is now married to Lisa and they have a son named Cornelius. Now let me get this out of the way. Cornelius 2 is like the worst character in all of these movies. I fucking hate him. I don't care if you think Bad Ape from War of the Planet of the Apes later down the line is the worst character because he's annoying. This motherfucker is so annoying. You will never understand the hatred and vitriol I have for him.
If my father were a gorilla, we'd all be learning writing instead of writing.
Boo, boo, bad joke, get him off the stage! This moron makes me want to launch him into the sun. Under Caesar, there's a gorilla general named Aldo, who has a major issue with the way that humans and apes are interfacing throughout this new civilization. He thinks apes should rule over the humans and imprison them just like they did to them in the past. This is shown in a scene where a human is teaching speech lessons to these apes that are becoming intelligent, and he says the word no to one of the apes. Real quick, this has been established as like the main rule of ape civilization. There are kind of like the ape 10 commandments, but I don't have all of them, but I know 2 of them we'll talk about in this video specifically. And this is one of them. Humans should never say no to any ape. Aldo loses his mind on this old guy and just berates him for what he did until Caesar steps in and diffuses the situation. Evidently there's a deleted scene of like an extended chase between these 2 guys. I think that's really funny. We also learn in this scene that Aldo has his own followers of gorillas that have the same worldview as Aldo, where they think that humans should be under apes. We find Caesar having some real like self-doubt issues about leading this new colony of apes and humans, and he wishes that maybe his parents would still be here so they can instill some wisdom into him. His parents being Zira and Cornelius, if you do not remember from the earlier movies. He feels like they'd be able to help him understand how to be a better leader for these people. Oh, and then we're introduced to a character from the last movie, McDonald. Oh, what's that? Oh. Yeah, Baja Blast, please. Large. Guys, I'm just hearing now actually that this is not McDonald, but rather his brother. I thought they just recast the guy. No, they made him his little brother. McDonald Jr., if you will. McDonald Jr. is Caesar's right-hand man in this new civilization and tells him about how in the old human city, there are recordings of his parents that might be useful to him to go find. They get a group together and they start getting ready to go to the city. The human city. And now we're introduced to the main antagonists of this film, the mutant humans. Yeah, that's right, they're back. These, fun fact, are the descendants of the mutant humans in Beneath the Planet of the Apes, the second movie. So you're seeing the start of this nuke cult right now. They live underneath the rubble of the city that was collapsed when the nuclear war came through. The leader of this group of mutant humans is actually a character we know already, General Culp, who is from the fourth movie, but he doesn't really get much to do. He's just kind of like a lackey for the governor in that movie, but he did have a hand in capturing Caesar, so there's a bit of personal stakes to it. With Caesar and his RPG party of characters going into the city, they find the recordings and start to listen to them, and they find out about the Doomsday Bomb from the second movie that blew up the entire planet, and that the humans have it in their possession. While viewing these recordings, the humans find them and start to chase them out of the city back to Ape City. Caesar reports back to Ape City and calls a meeting with humans involved. Aldo obviously has an issue with this, so he takes some of his followers and they go off to talk as well. They're starting to set up a coup to overthrow Caesar as the leader of this civilization. While I was researching, I found out that there was no real working script for this movie as they were shooting, which, Jesus Lord, it makes sense. Not that this is horrible or bad by any means, scenes, but these story beats are very like generic and just kind of hit the marks as you need to hit them for like an action adventure story. Even if I find value through the themes that are presented through this movie, whether intentional or not, I do think it's a bit cobbled together, all in all. They were flying fucking blind, bro, and they might have landed half the plane, but not the whole thing. As Aldo and his crew are talking about their plan to overthrow Caesar, we find out that Cornelius too is actually in a tree listening to them. Aldo notices he is listening, and he climbs that tree, takes out his sword, and batters him down from the tree, leaving Cornelius too critically injured. They scatter, and then the next day, a group of scout guerrillas are attacked by humans outside of Ape City. Aldo takes advantage of this situation and sees Caesar's mourning and grieving for his son, and enacts a sort of martial law where all the humans are imprisoned, and Aldo and his guerrillas loot the armory with all the weapons and guns that they've been stocked up from the humans. This is where a nexus point of the franchise kind of hits for me. The entire thesis of this movie is that once violence and weaponry is involved in a society, i.e. guns, the civilization starts to kind of crumble. We see that with the law, ape shall not kill ape, being enforced throughout this movie, and the rest of the franchise, honestly, where up until this situation, the civilization had gone on pretty much peacefully. They touch on this on the later Burton reboot, but really don't flesh it out in any meaningful way. That's why I think that movie kind of stinks. Stinky movie. And I think that in upcoming Planet of the Apes movies, it would be really cool to implement that into the sort of story structure. And they kind of do in Kingdom. We'll talk about that way later. I think it's very profound to make a point about civilization and how weaponry and guns can really influence the culture of the society. And it really nails it down for me in this scene where they loot the armory. Cornelius 2 dies. Yes! Sorry, he dies. But before he dies, he tells Caesar that it was not a human that hurt him, but rather an ape. And this is where we sort of like segue into greater themes of the Planet of the Apes franchise. A lot of stuff from this movie eventually gets extrapolated into the Rise, Dawn, War trilogy and really gets fleshed out better and done better, but they're at least laying the groundwork here. One of the biggest points in those movies is ape shall not kill ape. Aldo has broken the sacred law. We know that as the viewer, but the characters do not. After Cornelius II's death, Culp and the mutant humans launch a full-scale invasion on Ape City, ultimately failing and being killed by Aldo and his army. The final battle is quite underwhelming, to be honest with you. I found that the director came out with frustrations about this movie, feeling like it should have had a bigger budget to really nail the scope of this final battle and the climax of this whole Planet of the Apes story. It is what it is. You can't change it now. But once the dust settles, Caesar is made aware that Aldo was the ape that hurt his son. And we see a harrowing shot of Aldo backing up while every ape says ape shall never kill ape and encroaches forward upon him. Aldo's genuinely scared shitless in the scene, and I think the actor does really well. He retreats up a tree and ends up falling to his death, just like his victim did. We then revisit the lawgiver, who's shown telling the story of Caesar to a group of human and ape children, which kind of means it all worked out. They all ended up being okay. We see a statue of Caesar in the future, and we see, finally, one single tear fall down the statue's eye, as we close on the original trilogy of the Planet of the Apes. Well, we're done the original movies. Overall, I feel like this set of movies is really top heavy, with the first two being my favorites, and the third one being next, and then the fourth and fifth kind of battling out for the bottom spot. I did say that this one is better than the fourth, and it probably is just on like a thematic basis, but it's not very engaging to watch, truly. I really appreciate what these movies did for the science fiction genre, and the action adventure genre of the time, and I think they really took a big swing and made some really fun hour and 20-minute movies that you can watch and really just have a good time jumping in. Like I said earlier, I really love the idea of like guns being implemented as like the main crux of a crumbling society, and it shows a civilization kind of descending into madness and killing and harming each other. Dude, I feel like emotional. This has been such like a roller coaster making these videos and watching these movies. This has been awesome. I don't know, I feel like I'm like the Planet of the Apes guy now. For God's sake, my girlfriend got me like an original VHS box set of the 5 original Apes movies sealed. Like, this is so cool. It's such a cool little gift. Thank you. I love you. But yeah, this has been a fun journey. We've concluded the original 5 Planet of the Apes movies, but it's not over yet. Oh, no, no, no. We have the reboots to do, baby. Who